What's up, guys? Mr. Dan here, back again. It's Hammer time again. Back with another review of a Hammer film. Today is a strange one. Demons of the Mind, directed by Peter Sykes. Before I begin, two things. Number one is my voice is a little funny again. I had a little bit of a relapse, but I feel better today than I did yesterday, so hopefully it was just like a strange little relapse there. But my voice sounds funny to me. Hopefully it doesn't sound too bad to you. And then the second thing is I wanted to point out a channel that I've really become fond of, Ian Hill, The Ramblings. He just hit 700 subscribers. He reviews a lot of Hammer films. He's a big Doctor Who fan, a big X-Files fan. He's reviewing the Hammer series, The House of Mystery. He does a lot of Hitchcock films, a lot of classic films. And one of the things he does is he will break down the cast before he gets into the review. And I thought, since I can't really say too much about the plot of this one, I would do the same thing. Because there's certainly some recognizable faces in this, and just from the standpoint of watching the actors at work, I think this film is well worth it watching. So let's get into it. We have Robert Hardy playing Baron Zorn, and I know him from a film that Ian reviewed on his channel called Dark Places, which is a very underappreciated horror film, which also starred Christopher Lee and Joan Collins. And I think that's free on YouTube, so check that out. He's really good in this. He chews it up a little bit, but his character, that's the way his character is. His character is having some issues with sanity, even though he's blaming everyone else for being insane. He's got some terrific mutton chops, too, by the way. Great facial hair. And the Baron has two children. Shane Bryant plays Emil, and we know him from Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell and Captain Kronos. And then he was also in another Hammer film, Straight On Till Morning. I don't know a lot about that one. And Gillian Hills plays his daughter Elizabeth. And then you have Yvonne Mitchell playing Aunt Hilda, who kind of runs the household. And then you have this very recognizable guy here. He was an Australian actor. The director was Australian too, by the way. Kenneth J. Warren playing Klaus. And I recognized him from Dr. Blood's Coffin, which is probably not the greatest movie in his filmography. But in that film, his Australian accent slipped through a couple times. I didn't hear it in this film. But he plays someone who's basically like a chauffeur, butler, sort of like the enforcer of the house. If anyone runs away, he's the one to go out and get them and bring them back to the rooms and lock them in there. And the aunt is actually the one that has the keys to all the rooms, which is significant. And then you have Patrick Magee playing a doctor who is summoned by the Baron to come cure his kids. And, this was at a time when a lot of new theories about psychology were coming to the forefront. And he's already been kicked out of the profession. And, Baron Zorn really doesn't care about that. He just wants his kids cured. And I think the doctor recognizes that it might not just be the kids that have problems, but he's thinking, I can stick around and make some progress and maybe get a payday out of this. That's what I'm going to do. So he has some new hypnotism techniques. He's also traveling with a young man who begins to be infatuated with Elizabeth, the daughter, who's played by Gillian Hills. Oh, by the way, Emil and Elizabeth are perhaps a little bit too close to each other, if you know what I'm saying. Now, Patrick Magee, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, he's an old Hammer veteran, but actually, he's more of an Amicus veteran. He was in Tales from the Crypt and The Asylum, another anthology film. And he was also in a film that I just reviewed a while back, another Amicus film, The Skull. And he's the one that actually says Demons of the Mind in the film, because someone who's going to say it, right? Someone's going to say the title of the film. He's got a great voice, too. He's like, I believe we're dealing with demons of the mind. So he's always a lot of fun. And then you have this guy here, Michael Horndon. He plays a priest who just kind of wanders into the village, and he's wandering around the state talking about how God has chosen him to come here, and everyone thinks he's a bit of a nut, and they just keep pushing him away, and he just doesn't stop. And eventually, by the end of the movie, you realize he's there for a reason. It's actually kind of clever, to be quite honest with you. I really enjoyed the way that part of the plot came together at the end. So that's pretty much the cast. And as I said, the doctor thinks that his kids are scarred from a trauma that they witnessed. And indeed, there was a trauma, and it was pretty horrible. And the Baron himself is sort of becoming more and more unhinged. And then also what's happening is, in the village, young women keep disappearing. And at first it's very perplexing. Like, how is that related to the plot? But it all kind of makes sense at the end. And there's a pretty decent climax. The villagers get involved, and they kind of link up with the priest, and they kind of figure out what's what. And things are sorted out at the end. Let's just say that. As I said, this film was didn't do well at the time. Nobody knew how to market it. It was actually on a double bill, the lower end of a double bill with a slasher movie about a serial killer in a lighthouse. I forget the title. I'll put it up on the screen. But that wasn't a Hammer film. They just put it with that film as a double bill. So a very mismatched double bill. I think over the years, people have looked back at this and gained a lot more appreciation for it. I would say watch the trailer to get a feel for it. But if it's the same trailer that they had in the special features, darn it, do they not give away one of the key points at the end when somebody gets killed? They actually show that right up to it, and you'll figure it out. And you don't want to know that watching the film. There's some pretty violent parts in this, and apparently it was criticized by the censors at the time for being gratuitous. I couldn't disagree more. There's also some nudity, which I didn't think was gratuitous. For example, one of the procedures that they do to the daughter is the aunt will come in and practice some bloodletting. And you can see that the girl has several scars on her body so this is a routine thing that they do. And somebody raises an objection that, hey, you're trying to cure her? Aren't you keep making her weaker? But they actually have a kit that they bring in, and they open it up, and there's like this thing with razor blades, and there's a cup, and they heat the cup up, and they draw out the blood, and it's pretty graphic, but it fits in with the plot. And then later on, somebody is killed with a household object, or objects, rather suddenly. It kind of takes you by surprise. It's pretty violent, but it kind of makes sense. One of the characters snaps, and there's, they don't have a knife or an axe or anything. They have what they have, and they lash out. So to me, that's not gratuitous. This film, I could see why at the time they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know how to market it. The original script, by the way, had a werewolf element, which Hammer wanted to take out. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you think of Hammer, you think of monsters, think of some of the classic monsters. But I guess at this time they were thinking that those ideas were stale. They brought Dracula into the modern times, So they were trying to modernize everything, so they took that out. Having said that, there's a scene where the doctor is hypnotizing someone, and he talks about how the full moon affects the blood of a person. So that's like a little remnant left in the script. So I definitely recommend this film. I don't think... if you've never seen a Hammer film before, is this your go-to first Hammer film to watch? Probably not. If you're into psychological horror, this might be up your alley. If you want to see these fine actors at work, this is certainly worth checking out. And this was Scream Factory. So you're probably going to see this in a haul video in the future, which will be on Fridays now. But I'm doing some of these videos out of order. So you're going to see some other Scream Factory titles there as well. And there's one more thing I wanted to point out as we look at the inside cover art, which is not, a reversible cover. I just reversed it so we can take a look at it. There's a cool scene where we get to see like a pagan ritual that the villagers go through, where they have like a jack-o'-lantern. Well, it's like a scarecrow with a jack-o'-lantern head, and they sort of mimic driving out evil, even as they come to the realization that they actually have real evil in the village. Pretty cool scene. And then I also just wanted to mention the score, the musical score on this is just really solid. Overall, an extremely well-made film. Have you guys even heard of this? Have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. And come back next time for some more reviews, including Hammer reviews. Later.